Must be green. So, thank you very much for that. Welcome once again, honorable members, ladies and the meeting of the Standing Committee on Public Accounts of the Western Cape Provincial Parliament. This is an in-person meeting. As I was indicating, that is the first of its type since 2019. And then we will see how it goes. We are holding it because it's been opened up. A lot of the restrictions in terms of COVID has been relaxed. So we thought that let us try and have one in person. The meeting is going to have two presentations, and the presentation will both be led by the Provincial Treasury, and the Department of the Premier is also here. But before we start, just as a formality, I'm just gonna ask the honorable members that are present to please introduce themselves for record purposes.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, colleagues. My name is Derek America. I'm a member of the committee.
Good morning, colleagues. Good morning, Chair. My name is Matlodi Maseko, and I'm the member for the Standing Committee.
Thank you very much, honorable members. As I've indicated, we've got two presentations. We've got also two departments. I think they will be interlinking in terms of the presentation. For purposes of actually making a presentation on the status of the implementation of the integrated financial management system, piloting in the Western Cape. The next one will be regarding the red ends as well as the instruction notes that were issued by National Treasury. Now, what I'm going to do then, DG, I'm going to hand over to you guys, then you sort out how we are going to do the presentation. Will be led by you.
Chair, thank you. Thank you very much, and good morning to yourself and also all the members and those that have dialed up. I mean, Chair, this invitation was issued to both the Department of the Premier as well as the Treasury, and it's to brief you on what's happening with the implementation of the IFMS. And as you're well aware, this process has been coming on for some time. So that presentation will be done by the Treasury. In attendance is also Hilton Arendse, who's the head of our Centre for E-Innovation. So it's the head of CI in the province. Obviously, they're working closely together with the Treasury on this, because obviously there's a major systems component on it. And I'm sure you know the colleagues from the Provincial Treasury, and I take it that Jalinda Cantano is the DG in that department, and Isaac will actually lead on the implementation of the IFMS system in the province. Chair, from my side, I just need to run at about 9:30. It's Cabinet Day today, so I've decided just to come here for the start. But we are prepared, and then the second presentation just deals with all the instructions that's been issued by NT recently. And I mean, you are well aware of the one, particularly as it relates to in the supply chain environment that caused some havoc in the system in many of the departments. And I'm sure you're still going to hear about it quite a lot, particularly when we deal with the annual reporting processes. It is a matter that also served at the cabinet level. And in fact, we've put processes in place in all the departments, obviously with the guidance and the leadership from Treasury on this matter, on how to actually proceed on this particular issue. So there's lots of information, Chair. There's lots of activity that has taken place since those instructions were issued. But I think as a government, we've been able to be responsive and not go also off our good governance practices that's been in place at the time, and that's continuing to be in place, you know, in our respective departments. So, Chair, without further ado, I think I'm going to hand straight over to Jalinda, who will lead in both the presentations, and then we'll direct, you know, who will speak on which topic in terms of the Provincial Treasury team. So, Chair, thank you very much, and it's really good to see you in person. Jalinda?
Before you may continue, I see the Honorable Van Verstesen, the online hand is up.
you, Chair. My apologies for not being present in person. According to the parliamentary program that was circulated yesterday after programming, this was only to be a virtual meeting, and I apparently missed the other communication contradicting that. But thank you for welcoming me, and I'm as fully part of this meeting as one can be. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Van der Westhuizen. Ms. Clinton.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, members. I believe you've received apologies from our HOT as well as from the Minister.
Oh yes, yeah. Thank you very much for bringing that, because it does indeed indicate that the Premier is unable to attend, as well as the Minister, as well, and the HOD. Yeah, no, that's fine. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. So we do have two presentations, as the DG has indicated. Mr. Apiwe Mazombo is going to take us through the IFMS update. So over to you, Apiwe.
Thanks very much, DDG, and good morning to the members, and good morning, Chairperson, to you. All protocol observed. My name is Apiwe Mazomba. I'm the Director responsible for supporting and interlinked financial systems. We were asked to brief SCOPA in terms of the integrated financial management system, in terms of piloting that. Just to bring things to the loop, Chairperson, to indicate that this is a National Treasury initiative, and we are purely recipients of the initiative within the Western Cape government. So I will be then running through the presentation. I'm not sure who will assist us in terms of that. I'm just going to indicate with saying next slide, if you don't mind. Can I just quickly then ask for the next slide, please? So I just thought it was important just to bring my mic is red. Is that fine? Okay. I know my voice is very low. So just some background I thought was quite important, just to bring the discussion home in terms of the IFMS. As I've indicated, it is a joint initiative with National Treasury, DPSA, as well as CETA, in terms of driving the IFMS. The intention behind it was to essentially modernize as well as improve the back office processes within the public sector. And this, of course, excluded local government, the public entities, as well as intelligence agencies that were not part and parcel of the scoping of the IFMS. The National Cabinet approved this some time back, around 2005, and the intention behind it was to, at least by now, have had it implemented within all of the departments in the country. But unfortunately, there has been quite a number of delays that have occurred. There was a first attempt in terms of IFMS 1, which I will talk through, which was essentially a SAP implementation, and subsequently what had now happened is around the 2013, there were decisions that were taken to then go out again to the market to request for additional systems, or at least get a sense of what systems exist out there that can support government in terms of this. After that, a contract was then concluded with Oracle Corporation, who then was going to then implement the IFMS for the National Treasury as well as the entire nation. So what we've also seen is a series of a couple of practice notes that have been issued by National Treasury. Again, the aim of the practice note were to ensure that we don't, whilst the implementations are weighted, we do not duplicate by buying new systems or implementing new systems that were in the line of what the IFMS was to actually deliver for us in the various different provinces. So we've seen practice notes number 7 of 2006, and we've also seen number 5 of 2017-18 that have been published accordingly to us. We've taken note of that, and of course we are complying with those 2 practice notices. So National Treasury then approached us as a Western Cape government, and the intention behind that was for us to participate as lead sites in terms of the IFMS implementation. So Cabinet in principle then agreed to saying that we will become then the lead site. However, there were a few things that were left as questions to National Treasury, particularly in terms of roles and responsibilities in the IFMS implementation, as well as the funding implications associated with the IFMS. So who pays for what was kind of the discussion that was at hand. Next slide, please. So just to take us back in terms of then the objectives of the IFMS, really, as has been indicated, it was to modernize the technologies. We've been using antiquated systems, Logis, Bersal, and many other systems to assist in terms of the corporate administration of systems generally. So it was to replace those systems. That was a very good intention, and I think it's something that we still aim to achieve. It was to also improve the business processes, and this was through facilitating ongoing financial, supply chain, human resource management improvement reforms. It was also, in a way, as part of being transparent, to ensure that we improve the processing and compiling of data in order for us to make data available as and when it may be required for public consumption. It was also about utilizing that data for better decision making within the public sector. If you can move to the next slide, I just want to quickly show the members in terms of what is actually contained within the IFMS, because I think this slide is quite important, and that also speaks to why we felt it compelling to become the lead site in the implementation of the IFMS. So there are a number of modules within the IFMS system itself. As it is said, it is an integrated financial system. And in the supply chain management, there are quite a number of modules that we felt were quite compelling to us. The integrated supply chain management planning was one of which, management of the supply chain performance in terms of the suppliers, the management of commodities, movable assets, management of the procurement life cycle, so to speak, was then part and parcel of the modules, as can be seen there. It was also to focus on managing the contracts better, and also managing the disposal process much better in terms of assets. And then if one looks on the right-hand side, on the financial management side, you will see that this tool was to also assist us in terms of planning, in terms of budget planning, also managing inventory. It was also to deal with the aspect around, ordering of cash would have been part and parcel of the financial management tool. Again, this was to improve the muscle in terms of being able to transact better as a government in terms of those modules. And the HR side as well, there are 2 components that are sitting there. The one component is on the payroll, which is currently catered for by the Bersal system at this particular point, which then administers payment in terms of salaries to the relevant staff members or cadres within the the government machinery. It would then look at incentive management as well as deductions and managing the benefits of staff members holistically. And then, of course, the HR management component would be focused on a number of various different things, which were also quite compelling around the e-recruitment, the compensation management, personnel administration. I can go on. So it's quite a number of these important items around HR management, which became quite compelling, that we felt if we had to implement something of this sort, definitely would reap quite a number of benefits. If we can then move to the next slide, in terms of then answering the question that we have been asked in terms of where are we in terms of piloting the IFMS. At this point, Chairperson, I do want to indicate that there is no initiatives, certainly that have come through to the Western Cape on the IFMS as yet. What we have seen is quite a number of different delays that have been reported regarding the IFMS to the Western Cape government. The only pilot that really we can take note of is the IFMS 1 pilot, which was the SEP implementation, as I've indicated, and unfortunately that didn't succeed. So that pilot was between the period of 2005 and 2012. So fast forward then to 2013. Up until now, what has now happened is National Treasury has now approached us as the Western Cape government to utilize some of the technical resources that we have and the know-how and the knowledge and skills to support them in the implementation of the e-recruitment system at National Treasury. At this point, we're still reviewing the Memorandum of Understanding between the DG of National Treasury as well as our own DG and our Head of Treasury as well, to look at what is contained within this Memorandum of Understanding and then see to what extent we can commit our resources to supporting the National Treasury. So just to also give an indication, if you move to the next slide, in terms of the very many different project plans that have come through. On this particular slide here, it just quickly depicts a revised time frame, which would have seen us having implemented IFMS by now. And unfortunately, and as has been indicated, there has been quite a number of different delays that have come through from National Treasury in the form of either contracting challenges that they have, skills, lack of skills that they have, and also what we've also seen is a rapid change in leadership of the IFMS program itself. And that's unfortunate. It has led us to us still being here where we have not implemented the IFMS. If we then move to the next slide, and I think this slide is quite important because it talks to also my passion area around how we can then improve the legacy systems that we have. Meanwhile, we are waiting this IFMS. We've been waiting for it since 2005, and I think we also take note that whilst the long-awaited IFMS is ongoing, there has been technological advances that have happened. Meanwhile, we've been hit by COVID, and it has forced us to move into the space that we are in terms of now being able to utilize technology to drive more efficiencies for us. And so we're looking at that and we're saying, how do we then start modernizing at least the systems that we have currently in order to improve its muscle and at least couple it with a couple of different modules to improve how we can access credible information from it and be able to utilize it much more intuitively to support the business services that we have. We also acknowledge that, you know, the new norm as we speak is around, it has this demand around collaboration. It has this demand around, you know, a secure digital platform that will be able to assist particularly with financial transactions that happen on these systems. And key for us, it is then to utilize also the fourth industrial revolution and the opportunities that exist there to be able to support us in terms of modernizing at least the systems that we have currently. So we then, you know, decided to look at an initiative internally as a Western Cape government, which is to evergreen the legacy systems. And this project is mainly a modernization strategy to improve the systems that we have. And it is linked very well to the vision-inspired priorities of the province, in particular around the innovation and culture space. We're looking at it as a way to digitally transform the financial systems landscape in order for us to be able to be more responsive. And we're working alongside with CEI in terms of assisting us in terms of driving that digital transformation agenda that I speak of. So far, we've got a number of projects that are on the go. So the one is focused on dashboarding of the systems information as part of the data enablement on key source systems, BAS, Logis, and Basel. Recently, I think you probably are aware that we've published the public disclosure report, and particularly the information comes from these systems. So it's part and parcel of growing the data enablement capability so that we are able to be more transparent about how we are spending funds to the broader community. The e-leave system is something that we also are looking into, particularly to deal with the back office transactions. As you know, these also carry financial implications, and it becomes important that we also look into this space in order to support it. The general e-administration is also quite important. This talks to the aspect around the annual financial statements to support accountants in terms of producing these at more intuitive rates. The e-recruitment system, which we already have, is about how do we then improve that and support the National Treasury if we agree to support National Treasury in that space. The integration of financial systems is quite important. It's important because whilst we have the siloed systems, we're unable to get information at a central point. And so our focus right now is about how do we integrate at least this Logis, BAS, and BERSA, and also change the way in which we operate to allow for that integration to happen across the three systems, and also then the aspect around standardization, so that we don't find different systems operating in terms of managing the finances of the province. There is also a focus on data cleansing, and a key to the data cleansing activity is to ensure that at least our data as we receive it, that when we publish it out there, that we can be confident that it is data that that can be that we can say is of quality, and that it is data that we can be comfortable that meets the bare minimum requirements of what needs to be published out there. So, Chairperson, that is what we currently are busy with at this point in terms of the improvements on the financial systems, whilst taking note fully that these systems are national treasury systems and not necessarily the Western Cape government systems. Chair, let me pause there and thank you very much.
Thank you very much. You now I don't know. I think honorable members, let's take all the presentation. You want, yeah, let's take the next presentation. Then when we ask question, we just ask question right through. Otherwise, sometimes if we ask question now, we might end up prolonging the discussion and then delay the next presentation. I think let's get straight to the next presentation.
Chair, thanks for that.
Yeah, can I don't know, Chair, that I think the first presentation is more of the principle of the IFMS, that maybe if we ask the questions, and when we go to the details of other presentations, it will make it easier for us to ask the right questions, because here it's about why that system is in place and what was the benefit for that and everything. I don't know, that's how I feel maybe we can do
No,
it.
that's fine. Let's do that. Do we have any questions?
I think we start with the questions. I think maybe the first question from me, it will be from the initial stage of the IFMS. I think as we get the history from 2005, there's been the hiccups that happened throughout, and for it also for Western Cape to have the buy-in, the cabinet to have the buy-in. What was it that they identify that it will be beneficial if the track record of the IFMS was showing that there are hiccups that were very costly to the government? So that is the basic of what I'm trying to find out. What is it that you identified really as the cabinet to say, and this is the good thing that we can use, because ideologically it makes sense, but implementation wise was still the hiccups that were identified. And for Western Cape cabinet to have the buy-in at that point in time, what is it was the motivation to that? Maybe that I'll ask the other questions after that, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. I'll take this opportunity as well. Chair, we speak about the projects on the go. Those projects can be classified as evergreening the legacy system, so it is not linked to the IFMS initiative. So, so for all intents and purposes, Chair, is that as my colleague stated, to date there's no movement on the implementation of this integrated systems that you're talking about. Now, one of the concerns that was expressed in terms of the memorandum of understanding that has not been sort of concluded yet. What are the main issues? Is it only related to funding and also the I think in terms of or maybe there will be other matters contained in the memorandum of understanding that may be of concern to you. If there are, what are those? And then lastly, Chair, is that the latest toenadering sort of approach of National Treasury that the Western Cape Treasury should assist with the e-recruitment initiative. Is that is my understanding correct with regard to that? And if it is so, has that sort of request being put on hold as a result of the sort of agreement in terms of what should be contained in that memorandum of understanding? Thank you, Chair, for now.
Thank you very much. I see Honorable Van der Westhuizen on the line. Honorable Keko, are you also on the line? Okay, Honorable Van der Westhuizen, you may continue.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And firstly, thank you for adding this to the agenda of this meeting. It has been many, many moons ago when I happened to serve on the Portfolio Committee of Public Service and Administration in the National Assembly, and when we were also briefed on the implementation of the Integrated Financial Management System. And as you will see, it's been coming along for many, many years. And the problem that we're experiencing in my mind is that, you know, the world of computers and software is fast developing. And unfortunately, we seem to be in a situation where we are forever we are behind the curve. We are forever trying to catch up, and we are not able to do that. And in the meantime, I'm highly concerned about the aging systems that we are currently using, which in many respects, you know, are often even more hardware intensive than some of the later developments, where quite often more and more of the software activity is taking part in the cloud, so to speak. Now, I'm also concerned that in the meantime, we as a provincial government with our colleagues in other provinces may be quite vulnerable to cyber attacks and data theft, and even efforts to jumble with our data. And therefore, I think as a province, we fully support all notions of the national government to modernize our software systems. Having said that, in my own life, which had to do with the administration of education institutions, I actually vowed never to be the one piloting new administrative software systems ever again in my life, because the teething problems are just, in my experience, you know, taking up a lot of valuable management time, as well as that of people that need to capture and recapture data, etc. So my first issue is in terms of the ongoing costs of the software development at national level, and I'm grateful that cost has not been devolved to the provinces yet. But we are paying, according to my memory, a lot of money for licenses to this company called Oracle, or the company is not Oracle, but the product is Oracle, for licenses that are not being put to use. And it's actually, to my mind, a wasteful expenditure. Now, fortunately, that falls outside the scope of this committee, because that is currently still a national expenditure. And perhaps my first question would be, can you just confirm that is indeed that the direct cost of development up to now has indeed been carried by national. The second one is, I want to applaud the Western Cape for being chosen then to pilot this, although it's a poison cup, as I've said, that I would gladly, pass on if I were them. But also for first waiting for the memorandum of understanding to be finalized. It's extremely important that the Western Cape be completely comfortable with all aspects of the agreement, and obviously we also need the backing of the Auditor General, because what's been intended to be piloted is only what I would call a fringe sub-program. The actual program will be once we start capturing the financial data of the province. And I would like to ask of the officials whether in that memorandum of understanding you are insisting also to have direct access to the software developers, to support officers, etc. Should, once we start implementing the program, and should we run into problems, that we will have the assurance that the necessary knowledgeable people would be at our disposal to come and to resolve all the hiccups and issues that I can guarantee you we will be experiencing once we go over to the implementation phase. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Van Vesthuizen. I see there is no other further hands on the online also. Then just from my side, let me welcome this very fruitful presentation. Now, this presentation, it came as a result that when we were looking at the Department of Cultural Affairs and Sport, we noted that it was highlighted, the issue of IFMS was highlighted. Is it not on? It's on. So it was not highlighted, it was highlighted as a risk. Now, if you, when I heard, if I heard you correctly, Mr. Mazomba, you were saying that this initiative started, of course, in the presentation it says so, it started in 2005. That's 17 years ago. You know, if one might have started at school, will have finished by now, even at school, you know, while the system still hasn't taken off the ground. And I must say, having listened to the presentation and actually read through it, I think it was not a bad initiative. It was a good initiative. But why it's not getting off the ground, of course, that's probably something that you also might not be able to answer. That's maybe for national to answer. Well, I think it's something that is similar to MSCOA at local government level. But for some reason, the local government one, it looked like it got off the ground, you know, and it also got almost similar modules. If I look at some of the modules, there are modules that are actually similar to it. Now, I always ask this devil's advocate question that maybe why can't the Western Cape do it as its initiative? You know, if we pride ourselves about innovation and modernization, it's something that we can actually maybe lobby national government strongly. We do it as a department, then as a province, as a government, provincial government, then maybe the rest will follow after we've initiated that, you know. So obviously there are a lot of things that needs to be negotiated. I know Honorable America as well as the Honorable, they are stressing the issue of the memorandum of understanding. Everything is going to be in the memorandum of understanding, what's in there. But I think just by looking at the presentation, I think it's actually a good initiative. Now, just a similar question I wanted to ask was like, for example, if the company Oracle was appointed appointed in 2012? Yeah, because there's as a service provider to kind of assist in this thing. I think the Honorable Van Vesthuizen is raising a very good question as to whether now the service provider is there who is paying for the service provider, you know, because there were, just like in MSCOA, there were, of course, licenses. There were a lot of, luckily with MSCOA, there were more than 5 companies that we identify for that can be chosen from where they can be used. But on this one, which is a much bigger project, only one. So what is happening presently? You know, maybe if you are able to answer that, it might assist. The last question I wanted to ask is you mentioned it looked like you might have attempted one of the modules. The only, you said there on the slide, the only pilot was the IFMS 1 for SAP implementation on the HR system, which failed. Maybe by assist, if you can just elaborate in the response more. What were these failures? What were the challenges? There any lesson that could have been learned? But I must say, generally, I think from my side, I've got more than I bargained for on this, on further understanding the system really. And I think if we can endeavor to undertake it, I think it can actually bring more benefit than risk, and maybe it can even end the issue of always being highlighted there as a risk, because as long as it's outstanding, I think it's always going to stand as a risk. I think that's what made us as a committee to actually have an interest in it. So those are just some of my general comments and questions. You can allow then a round of responses.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to start, and then I think the members, the team members, will take on some of the other questions. Maybe the first question that Member Maseko asked, and I want to actually indicate that the members, as well as the Chair, started to answer the question, which is making my job substantially easier. But I think just to indicate, Chair, we in the Western Cape, I think we've been jealously guarding and tirelessly working towards this good governance agenda that we've been pushing over a number of years. So when we looked at what the benefits would be of an integrated financial system, and why we would want to be part of the initial of it, it was purely coming from a point of view is that this is where we are, and it's best if we get in early to influence as opposed to coming in when it's done and we were told it must be implemented. It is a national system, so we don't have the choice in the matter. So we could see the benefits, and then we also realized that if linking it, I think Apiwe mentioned it, to our vision-inspired priorities, and the work that we have been doing in terms of governance transformation, we could see the benefits, and it's best then to influence. And I think also why we are eager to also be part of, or when we were approached by the National Treasury to assist with the development of the e-recruitment module or aspect of it, then it felt like this could be also an opportunity for us to influence. I think Member van der Westhuizen indicated that it is difficult when you're a pilot and you receive something that's already there and you have to implement, comes with a lot of growing pains. And obviously for us, that was, I think, part of the motivation of wanting to get in early. Up here, I think there were a number of questions, Isaac. Then there was a question on cybersecurity. Hilton, thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Chair, just maybe before up here respond to some of the technical questions, just to let on to what Linda was saying in years, getting the buy-in from the management of the province, but also understanding that we've got a partnership with the National Treasury. So that is important for us. And yes, whilst there've been quite a bit of frustration, I think particularly from Apiwe's side, because he's the one from our side that's holding the fort. In fact, in the way that Apiwe have handled it, there are continuous sessions, not only with the National Treasury, but also with the Eastern Cape, which was initiated from our side. Taking into account there are some hiccups at national level, it is important, even through this frustration, that as a Western Cape government, even if there's some struggles, that we can assist where we can, but that we stay committed to be part of it, while simultaneously understanding the frustration, the issues that Apiwe have put on the table in looking at modernizing our current systems as well. So I just wanted to reiterate that in terms of the partnership with the National Treasury, SITA, as well as the DPSA.
So thanks very much, Isaac, and again, thanks very much for the questions to the honourable members. I just want to cover a few questions, and I think Member Maseko, you've been covered by and large by some of the other questions also that came through in the responses by Jolinda. The question by Honorable America insofar as the MOU is concerned, I think there it's an important piece of document that we have to do due diligence in, and key to it is about ensuring that our roles and responsibilities are quite clear in that document as we're going into a partnership, so to speak, between ourselves as a Western Cape government as well as a National Treasury and DPSA around this. And so the document is circulating through to legal services for them to also have a look at and give us indications as well in terms of what they see and advices before anyone can actually sign off on the documents. So that's something that's already on the go. And I think it was Honorable van der Westhuizen that mentioned that we are behind the curve. Certainly, I think we are behind the curve, and we need to catch up as quickly as what we can from a technical perspective. However, what's been holding us back, as I've indicated, there are practice notes that have been issued by National Treasury prohibiting us from actually taking on or buying new systems that can support the Western Cape government. And that is holding us a little bit back. We understand the nuance behind it is that of ensuring that there is no duplication insofar as the project IFMS is concerned. However, I think it has been indicated by the chairperson, it's been 17 years and we need to get going. And I think that for me is quite important that we do. The matter around cyber attacks, fully agree. I think we've seen quite a number of attacks recently, and I'm sure my colleague Hilton will cover that as well in terms of how we are dealing with it. But I do want to indicate that these are national systems that are hosted at CETA National and not necessarily Western Cape systems, and therefore the security protocols are dealt with at the CETA National Office, and the responsibilities out of National Treasury to safeguard the current mainframe systems that we have. Quite old. So far, we have not had an attack as yet, but it doesn't mean that we cannot have an attack. Yes, I think what has also been indicated is, and I think out there in the public domain as well, it has been indicated that there has been fruitless and wasteful expenditure in respect to the licenses, Oracle licenses that have been procured because they've not been utilized. They've essentially been shelved. And I think it's for National Treasury then to respond to why and how much that cost actually is. And I mean, to also answer the question of the chairperson in terms of, so why aren't we doing it ourselves? As I've indicated, the National Treasury practice notes and instructions have been quite clear in terms of us not duplicating efforts in that particular space. And then I think the last question is about, the lessons that we've learned in terms of the SAP implementation. I think what certainly stood out for me is that the software cannot drive the business processes. That the software should enable business processes, and that for me was one of the major lessons that have been learned from the SAP implementation. The software almost wanted to steer how the business processes should function of government, and it should never be the case. And I think that's one sadly big area that we've learned. Of course, the other matters around, the cost implications associated with the licensing model of SAP also, and complicated licensing models of SAP also played a huge role in terms of the failure in terms of the IFMS1, which were to be rectified with the IFMS2 Oracle initiative. Chair, for now, I think those are the responses from my side, and if at all, Hilton on the cyber attacks. Thanks.
Chair, PU has covered most of the items that I'm going to have to respond to also, and I could tick them off. I'd just like to link it to your last question. So, since 2005, why have we not delivered anything at a national level? And our view is that they tried to implement this whole thing with a big bang approach. It's all or nothing. Where experience tells us that when you develop a system like this, even like when you build a house, you design the house for the big house, the double story with the pool and all the amenities in that house, but you start building it. First build the garage, you live in the garage, and you start building the house. So the idea should have been to start from doing the architecture properly, and having proper architecture, and then building the core models, and then first implement that, making sure you have a minimum viable product, and then build out the system from there. The problem that we have is they tried to build everything at the same time, and it never worked. So that was a key challenge that we've experienced at National. And I think the way that they're approaching now is looking at different modules and asking different provinces to develop different modules. And that's why they've asked our Western Cape government to specifically work on the e-recruitment, because we have experience in that space, and asked us to work with them. But that were the key challenges that we've experienced. And in terms of the supplement implementation, you've hit it on the nail on the head. It's about trying to optimize the processes by putting technology onto it. And what we do is we first optimize the process, and then you add the technology to enable the efficiency of that process, rather than having a suboptimal process, then you add technology. And some of the challenges that we've experienced here, people had to duplicate things because the SAP system did not integrate with Persol. Now you need to capture leave on SAP, and then you need to capture it on Persol again. So duplication, lack of integration, a lot of things that they've not taken into account. The security of the signature. So when I sign off, how does that work? How does that impact on the auditability of that process? So there were a lot of challenges in that phases, lessons learned, as PV said, that we now need to take forward. But in essence, I'm hoping that one day before any of us retire in this room here, that we would have landed the IFMS, because it is important. The idea is right. The idea and the concept, we cannot fault it. But it's about the implementation and trying to implement everything at once. And I say, if we've implemented one module in 2007 and another module in 2011 and then 2015, we'd have been way ahead by this stage. But at this stage, we've not implemented anything because of this big bang approach. But I'm hoping, and we're hopeful, and we're confident that the Treasury will get it right. And we can only but support National Treasury in this endeavor.
Just a general question, have you had any interaction with Oracle as a service provider? I don't know, only one can answer that.
So Chairperson, yes, we have, because we wanted to understand the product that's coming. It's important for us to understand how it can fit the business processes currently that we have. So we have had a few interactions, both at National Treasury, and they've also approached us as well, to also understand how the Western Cape government processes operate. And I think that is quite important. They are contracted, as has been indicated, by National Treasury. And so we do have regular engagements to understand their product a bit better and how we can infuse it into the current workings of government. Thanks, Chair.
Follow up?
So sorry, Chairperson. I think there was another question that had been raised by member van der Westhuizen, and Isaac just reminded me in terms of yes, we are aware that the current legacy systems are quite costly in terms of the hardware, particularly the mainframe systems that we have, as well as the skills that support those. And by the way, I must say, these are resources that were meant to support these systems since 1990, I think it was, that we implemented this. So they have also aged a bit. So that's also another challenge. And of course, what we've now been putting forward to National Treasury as a Western Cape government has been that we need to move fast into the cloud, space, because I think that is where we can find efficiencies. And that is where we can also move with times, because I mean, if you look at your phones right now, majority of your data is cloud-based. We no longer have servers. We don't have people going to fix the servers any longer. That's a problem somewhere else. So, Chairperson, I think that is certainly a move that we want to go into as well, and which we've been really influencing the colleagues at National Treasury to start looking into. Thanks, Chair.
Follow up, Honorable Maseko.
No, thanks, Chair. I think the question that I wanted then to be responded to was the issue of the technology as it moves faster than the IFMS is moving, that how are they balancing that? Because the more the teething problems happens, that means the more cost is attached to those teething problems, and the technology is not waiting for us, which is a challenge, and also the capacity for that new programs that are coming within it's going to be quite interesting to until what time. And I mean, one of the easier things maybe of the memorandum of understanding, if it takes long for it to be secured for Western Cape to say, how do we go about to assist quickly? It's going to be a challenge. We'll just have to sit and see how is it going to roll out, because by the time you sign the memorandum of understanding, there will be something new that is in place that you have to go back and consult again and say, okay, this is what is there now. How are we going to go about? So somehow they need to be cut the red tape of IFMS, because there's a lot of red tape, I think, that is happening. And it's technology that is really the core driver for that. And if we are not moving at the speed that is needed, it's a challenge, period. We can be as brilliant as you are, as we know you are in Western Cape, but at the end, you'll be inside that bag of potatoes, one way or another. Thanks, Chair.
Chair, I think it's more of a comment, and thanks very much, Member Maseko. I do want to say, I think for us to move, we have to move as a unit. And really, my plea also to this Parliament is, how can we assist in terms of transitioning and moving us into this direction? Because we do want to move. We think it's time to move. 17 years thereafter. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, like I said, if you started school, you will have finished matric long time ago after these 17 years. Now, if there are no further input from your side, further additions, we'll move to the next presentation. Oh, you wanted to have some addition?
No, Chair, I just want to ask whether I may be excused because I only have to sit in full IFMS part.
Okay.
Thanks so much.
Can you move on to the next presentation?
Thank you, Chair. It will be Isaac Smith that's going to speak to the Red End security tender as well as the instruction notes, but we also have Mr. Viljoen Bester with us to deal with some of the National Treasury instruction notes, if there's questions from the members. Thank you.
Thank you, Tshilana. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members. I might not necessarily keep to the script of the presentation. We've put some detail in there, and if you know, when the moment that you thought about procurement and supply chain, it's very technical of nature. And then, of course, there's also the instruction notes. So these questions or the resolutions raised by the committee actually integrate with one another. Maybe just before I actually go into the red ends kind of issue, just to indicate to you, as far as the instructions are concerned, there's normally 3 areas. It's on supply chain, accounting, and then budgeting. You will see that there's normally no problem with the budgeting and the accounting part. So that's in the presentation, but normally we do not have any particular issues as far as those disciplines are concerned. It's mostly within the supply chain environment, and hence I'll focus on that, because in the presentation you'll see that there were no deviations or either non-compliance with those areas, just to maybe just shorten the presentation as well. But before I go into these areas, I think it's just important that the committee understand how we've put the supply chain system together in the province, because it will talk to some of the issues that you've raised. Now, as you're well aware, after the PFMA was promulgated from January 2004 onwards, departments became responsible for their own procurement environment in terms of the PFMA, and the tender boards were disbanded. And that was an important issue, that the power then lies with the accounting officers of the department. Hence, the system in the province was built around that. So it's an integrated system between the provincial treasury and then all of the departments, whilst in some other provinces, you'll find that the provincial treasury start dictating everything. And that is not a model that we've employed in the Western Cape. It's integrated. And part of the responsibility of the provincial treasury was creating this enabling environment for the departments to perform their services. It is important that we do understand that, because when we audited against that, we audit against how other people have implemented it, not necessarily how the Western Cape have implemented. And I'm talking now of a system that's in place for 20 years. And then also to Linda, I've spoken about our focus on governance, because a long time ago we realized if the governance is in place, it actually improves service delivery. So it's a holistic system that we've built. Now, part of that system is that the accounting officers take responsibilities for procurement for their departments, and if there are transversal contracts and there are economies of scale, that as a provincial treasury, we will take those initiatives. What we've also done is that, because of the role that the Department of Premier is playing within the HR space, that those transversal contracts are arranged by them with the assistance of the provincial treasury, just to understand how we operate in the Western Cape. Then, particularly your bigger departments have their own transversal contracts because they decentralize. So they've got huge contracts, and all the institutions outside purchase from those contracts. That's also called transversal contracts. So what you will see within our environment, what we've done is look at the collective skill across the province, and then use that skill within departments, the Treasury, Department of Premier, actually to drive, at the end of the day, service delivery. Now, that is how we've built the system, and it's been working for us. And one of the key enabling environments that the provincial treasury have created is compiling blueprint documents for all the departments, which they customize. We've implemented the e-procurement to standardize in the pandemic. In fact, if you look at the outcome of the Western Cape, we actually have minimal non-compliance issues. So that system becomes then important. So coming back to the issues at hand. As far as the red end is concerned, and I also just need to indicate that the service providers have changed in the meantime. So although from a committee perspective, speak about red ends, it's actually about this type of service. There are 2 service providers that's now on board. It is a departmental specific procurement. It's only the Department of Human Settlements that actually for that security services. And I'll come back to the transversal one. And that's mainly to, if you can go to the next slide. Next one. And that is what the service is all about. It is safeguarding immovable assets when the threats are there, to deal with unlawful invasions, and then, of course, to take action against it. That is what that contract is linked to. And it's particular as far as the services attached to the Department of Human Settlements. Next one. And particular is when they're building houses and the houses are finished. And we know that people move into those houses. The moment that the houses are finished, they actually activate this particular service so that there are no invasions. That's the one big area. Then the second one is the rental stock. The moment that people move out of the rental stock, they activate this particular service. So it's not a service that's always there. It's when those those products are finished from a housing perspective and when rental stops. So that is particular to the Department of Human Settlements, and this is just the scope. I think what is important to that and where it differs from the other security services is the fact that they need to deal with crowd control. They need to have the ammunition, their vehicles, and that is totally different from the other services. So what I want to indicate is, taking into account the background that I gave, this is a human settlement departmental specific procurement. Now, of course, in the pandemic, I think the pandemic have brought a different dynamics to the table. And also, as you've indicated, there have been relaxations from the National Treasury on dealing with the pandemics and the procurement. So within the pandemic environment, there was also a need from the Department of Transport and Public Works to safeguard, which was not part of the normal security services. And they approached the Department of Human Settlement to do it on behalf of them. Hence, you'll see, that they've paid the Department of Human Settlements for that. And that is something that we normally do. We do it within the ICT space. There are other areas that when there's an agreement between the HODs, and I've seen in the response, the AG indicated there was not approval. I've personally spoken to the Department of Human Settlements. There was agreement because the Department of Transport and Public Works didn't piggyback on the contract. They've asked the Department of Human Settlements to deliver the service on behalf of them. So that is a difference, and that is also a procurement method that we in the province, taking into account how we've put together and look at the integrated system, accounting officers do share in initiatives and contracts. And that is not necessarily the piggybacking that the AG is talking about. That is the internal arrangements. Next slide. What I've also indicated just in there is particularly the areas that's covered in this particular contract that I can also indicate to you it's actually outside of the scope of the transversal contract that I'll get to. And you'll see the item on the red at the bottom that this particular service that I was just highlighting was not included in the scope of the transversal security contract. So again, this is departmental specific, and the Department of Transport and Public Works had an arrangement with Human Settlement, and hence they were reimbursing for the department for that. So if I can just stop there and go to the next one. Next slide. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's next one. So this is the transversal security contract, but this is also the process with any transversal contract that we've arranged. So there was a question from the committee is how do we go about in terms of arranging this transversal contract? Of course, it's all about standardization. And what we do is as we do a market analysis. That's the first thing. That's a requirement, even for as the law indicate that the provincial treasury can arrange transversal contracts. We cannot just do it. There needs to be a market analysis. We need to pull in all the departments, all the AOs. They need to agree. We need to prove there's going to be efficiencies, whether it's from a cost perspective or from a management perspective. We take it to the provincial top management, and if needed, we also take it to cabinet. So there is a whole process before we can actually embark on this transversal contract. You also must understand what I said earlier. The right for the procurement lies with the accounting officer and to do it within their vote. Although the provincial treasury have got certain responsibilities, we still need to get the buy-in and the approval of those accounting officers to arrange the contract. As far as this contract is concerned, it's quite a big contract. In fact, we're busy with the renewal. It covers all of the departments, but comparing this contract, I can actually indicate this contract is about access to the institutions, whilst the other one is actually more enforcement. So this is to guard access to our institutions. That's the difference between the security contract, the transversal one, and the one linking to human settlements. The next one. So in this particular contract, what we've also done as part of our market research, and because we had numerous problems with contracts in the past, we've also built in some contract management principles which must be standardized across the provincial government. As far as the committee system is concerned, all the departments that produced contracts, they involved. It covers the whole of the Western Cape. It covers the education, some of the education sites, not necessarily all. It covers all the hospitals. It covers all the provincial buildings. And what we've also done as part of our empowerment drive is that where we had about 6 contractors in the past, there's about 20 contractors that's actually running the services, which means it can be better controlled. And then, of course, you'll see there it is about physical guarding, and then, of course, technical guarding as well, and then on-site monitoring. So that just gives you the difference between what I've indicated as far as the Red Ends contract is concerned, because that was a requirement from the committee. So let me then go over to the instruction notes, and I've already started to discuss some of those issues. The committee was particularly interested whether there were any deviations. And, and that we're highlighting that, which is, again, in terms of where we can find all the instruction notes. Next one. Just coming back, and particularly to the supply chain. And over these years, because of the approach that I've indicated, part of what the Provincial Treasury is doing, I indicated we're creating the enabling environment. So as part of that enabling environment, we need to ensure whatever policy matters, it's then come from national, that we ensure that we either haven't already implemented, because we've implemented quite a lot, and also whether there are some areas that's going to create problems for us, which we then take up with the national. That's always been our approach, that we're not just going to take that circular and issue it to departments. Now, it's different from a budget perspective, in an accounting perspective. There's either black or white. Within a supply chain environment, there's a lot of gray, and it's important that in the province that we standardize, that each and every department don't have their own interpretation of what needs to be done. So just to give you that particular confirmation. The next slide, hence, you'll see in our Provincial Treasury instructions, we've clearly indicated the process when we deal with any instruction notes, when it comes from national. And I also have to indicate, and I'll after this just give you an idea in terms of where we differed from the National Treasury and also what happened subsequent. But this is important, and we've communicated to committees also in the past, because there's always a question on instruction notes, and what the AG is doing, they want us to follow the letter of instruction notes. I just want to give you an example, which of course you will have to look at your own environment. In one of the instructions note, the National Treasury have said that each and every department need to ensure that they have forensic capacity within supply chain. Now, in our province, forensic services sit within the Department of the Premier, and it's working well for us. And there's no duplication, there's no wastage. And we had to tell the National Treasury, but we cannot implement what you're indicating. We've got a different way of doing it, which we believe it's more efficient. And that is normally the trend. But we do engage with the National Treasury on that. But I think this is important. This is how we approach in instruction notes, which the AG does not always see why we're doing it. They want us to implement it as it's indicated in the instruction note. Next one. The next one just gives you an indication in terms of some areas where we've differed and we went back and we had other processes in place. In fact, I also need to indicate to you that the whole issue about the preferential procurement, we had a stance since 2017, and that was vindicated by the Concord judgment, which means that the way that we've approached it from our side and to uphold governance and to ensure consistency is working for us. There was another example also that they've indicated when you expand contracts beyond 15 and 20%, you need to get provincial treasury approval. And if we said, but provincial treasury was never part of the contractual arrangement, you can't make that decision. And in fact, they've retracted now, and they've stated it's within the ambit of the accounting officer. So I just want to give you an indication, in terms of when you talk about deviations, we in fact, as far as possible, we implement national instruction notes. But there is a responsibility to ensure that we do not actually embark on illegal processes, although it comes from national. I also need to indicate to the committee that as a result of that, and under Jalinda's leadership, we've taken a decision to support the National Treasury. So from my side, I've got two teams supporting the National Treasury as well. As our people said, there's an outflow of skills. We're fully aware, and we're part of those processes as well. So it's not that we go against with some of the issues that the National Treasury is saying. In fact, a lot that have changed now over the last year and a half as a result of our involvement with that. So coming back to the deviations, the committee, there are no deviations in terms of those instruction notes. It's rather non-compliance. So what you'll find that quite a number of issues that's raised within the audit reports is on supply chain. It's a non-compliance. A lot is to do with interpretation. One of the issues was the whole local content, which of course have now been overruled by the Constitutional Court, which also means that our approach in involving our departments and have discussion groups through forums to ensure that we uphold corporate governance is working. So I just wanted to give you that particular context and indicate where there is a difference. It's mostly on the supply chain, on the accounting, and on the budgeting. Those instruction notes is very clear in terms of where to go, and there's no need to actually have a different approach as far as that is concerned. Chair, as I've said, I'm not normally sticking to the presentation. It just put it in context. Thank you, Chair.
I want to check whether online are there any questions. Let's start online. Honorable Van der Westhuizen.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank you for this presentation. I have three questions. My first question is, perhaps I can just motivate this. It seems to me always difficult if an instruction note is issued and then it needs to be amended or explained or sometimes even retracted, which doesn't bode well for general management quality and certainty. And we need clear guidelines, particularly when it comes to financial issues. So my first question is, to what extent, and you have referred to I think you said 2 units supporting National Treasury, but to what extent is there engagement with provinces before National Treasury issue instruction notes? The next one is, if I recall correctly, I think the Western Cape at one stage asked for a legal opinion, and I don't know if it was eventually endorsed by the courts, as to the legal, can I call it, enforceability of these instruction notes being issued by National Treasury. Is this the law, or are they just setting, can I call it, good standard procedures? And then the third one is, to what extent should provinces follow the principle of good governance, and to what extent are we bound to follow the letter of the instruction notes? And I think you referred to the forensic ability and the forensic unit in the province that differs from that as spelled out by National Treasury in an instruction note. And then perhaps if you wouldn't mind just highlighting to us I think there was a recent circular from National Treasury which followed a constitutional court ruling, I believe, which resulted in a number of HODs being extremely, concerned about procurement. And I know that at least in some departments, it resulted in the cancellation of procurement for certain events, etc., that were on their annual performance plans. So what is the latest in this regard? Do we now have clarity on that circular from National Treasury in terms of procurement, etc.? Thank you, Chair.
Honorable America.
Thank you, Chair. My question is just a question for clarity in terms of the initial part of the presentation with regard to the security. Chair, in terms of the procurement of the services, and I'm hesitant to refer to the matter as the red ends one because I mean it's no longer applicable. Who is the main contracting party with that security services? Certainly, and then secondly, I mean it's heartening to know that that there's an expansion of service provided within those main contracting, particularly with reference to the tactical and the physical security aspect, which has been expanded to about 20 subcontractors, if I could call it that. Within the context of the main contracting party, do these subcontractors, are they contracted by the main contracting party, and hesitant to call it by a particular name? And then lastly, Chair, in terms of interdepartmental contracting for services from the from the main contractor, who determines the contract price for the interdepartmental sort of services to be rendered, such as the Department of Public Works and Transport? Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much, Honorable Masep.
Thank you very much. I just want to find out. I mean, we do have now the and I'm going to just use Red Ends as a company, and maybe Company X. Now you do have the portion of the enforcement and also the side of the protection, of which from the Department of Human Settlements, my understanding it's more of the enforcement. But when coming to now thinking about the public works, with an example of the project like your Conradi, that means also it's going to fall into that portion of the enforcement. Now, when there might be a need, if it can be, there's a need for the Red Ends, the process as we stand now, as we talk now, will it be the same process that they went through to make sure that there is a protection of the assets, or the enforcement if they have to remove other people, or now everything is in place? And if that's the case, do you feel the allocation in the budgets for the public works and human settlement, they have to also budget for that to make sure that if something like that happens, they already have the allocation that happening, because it's not like it's this financial year that something like this happens. It's been going on throughout the years that you'll find the invasion, you'll find all that. So the need to be proactive, to what an extent is that a need that you don't get the AG saying that it should have happened this way and not that way? How do we take initiative in the supply chain management or in the APPs to make sure that you are proactive in communicating that to the AG before we see things that really service has happened? It's what was supposed to happen, but it's a finding which is not really, to me personally, justifiable of why should it be a finding, because that is what was supposed to happen. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Honorable Maseko. From my side, if I listen correctly, this is again one of those issues where I think the department and the provincial treasury are disagreeing with the AG. If I listen correctly, I might be wrong, because the matter, the crux of the matter is that if we read there, we say that while we were engaging the Auditor General of South Africa on the risk between the Department of Transport and Public for the financial year under review, it emerged that the Department of Human Settlement made use of services of Red End Security Decoration Eviction based on a contract between Human Settlement and Red End, but without following the processes relating to participating in a contract of another organ of state. Instead, the Department of Human Settlement paid the supplier and was reimbursed by the other department. Now, I think in a way, Mr. Smith, you tried, it was highly technical when you were explaining it to a point. I think if I was listening to you carefully, you were saying that this is not necessarily piggybacking. It was more of a service rendered by another department to another department. Now, were there no processes followed? Were there not supposed to be processes followed in terms of that? So that's just if you may just clarify that for me, because again, I think it looks like it's one of those instances where now financial people are disagreeing among themselves. That is now treasury and AG in this instance. Now, I think also the second question I wanted to ask is, I think you mentioned something that we are in the process of renewing this contract. Is it the Red End contract that we are renewing?
No, that the new one is already in. It's the other one that we renew.
Of the Red End still?
It's the Red Ends have been renewed. Now, there's now new service providers, but it's the other one that the second one that we in the process of renewal.
For the Red Ends?
No.
Oh, for another service provider?
Yeah.
For another service provider?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. No, that's fine. Then I wanted, because I was going to ask whether the process has been followed in that renewal. Okay.
Can I
Yes,
I just want to piggyback on your question, but to throw in, maybe my understanding is that the process was followed in the two departments. Am I right in saying that the only thing that was delayed was the sign-off from the Treasury, so that by the time the AG does what they do best, was already there in place. My understanding was that, am I wrong in that interpretation?
There's a question from online, Monde.
Thanks, Chair. Mine is also on the same question that we have raised. I'm not sure if maybe the manner on which we are putting this question, whether we're leading or we're misleading the response in this regard. can we get then the exact clarity as to the misunderstanding that was there between the AG and the Treasury as far as to that process that was followed by the two departments? Was it in line, and what is the current understanding now going forward? And also in terms of relationship, that how is the relationship between the two now, that in a situation whereby we do not want to continuously see the state taking itself to court in terms of interpretation, in terms of two different spheres, how we interpret it. So how is the engagement process between the two now going forward? And also, I just wanted to check on the issue of red ends, because we have seen, especially during the hard lockdown, where there would be demolition of especially for the Human Settlement Department, and such were taken to review in court. And who incurs now such kind of costs? Because I know that provincially the government lost all those cases where they were evicting people. They lost everything. So now what we want to understand is that in a situation where, because we have noted with this issue of enforcement, especially with regards to this contract of red ends, that now they have decided to take the law into themselves now and become law enforcers. So what I want to understand, that in a situation where there is serious court costs, who in this process would be held liable? The department itself in terms of the contract, or the red ends that end up or ended up extending their own mandate in terms of eviction of our people? Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Xhego. I'm going to allow the department to respond.
Okay, on the last question, unfortunately, it's not within my means to respond about the legal issues, particularly with this kind of services. So I'll stick to some of the issues that were raised in the questions, as well as the document that was sent to us. Departmental claims has always been part of our financial system. It was always there, departmental claims. Yes, departments that actually, through their mandate, are responsible. And if there's something that another department is needing, they make use of those departments, and they then transfer that money by virtue of a departmental claim. In this particular case, the Department of Transport and Public Works arranged between the two HODs. I actually spoke to the Department of Human Settlements because I didn't have the detail, and they've indicated there was agreement between the HODs in terms of this departmental response, and that Department of Human Settlements will do this on behalf of the Department of Transport and Public Works, and they will reimburse it against the contract rates. It's not a specific rate the departments charge one another. It is the contract rates, and that is the norm within our environment. So I have not said that I'm in disagreement with the AG. I've said this is what is in our environment, and it's been there for quite some time. In fact, it's the first time that the AG have raised this issue of interdepartmental claims, and maybe it's something that we need to look at. I think the question was also asked: how can we then maybe eradicate this particular problem? If there are departments that might have some of the need for the services, and Member Masego have mentioned the Conradi, we maybe need to talk to the Department of Transport and Public Works, and whilst they not the contract holder, one can simultaneously talk to the Department of Human Settlements. If they go out and contract, then they make provision that some of the other departments can share into that. Then you actually eradicate the problem. But that depends in terms of, whether this is a need from the Department of Transport and Public Works, and from the PT side, we can engage and then, of course, see then to what extent one can put a process in place that might be more amenable to the correct interpretation. So I've just said that we've got a standard way of doing things, which is in departmental claims, which was in this particular case. The Department of Transport and Public Works just transferred the money to human settlements, who at the end of the day pay the supply in terms of their contractual arrangement. That's also coming back, and I'm handling all the security issues. As far as the 20 contracts are concerned, there's no main contractor. We contract all 20 directly. It is a bit of administration. But what we've done, I've also said earlier, we've got the e-procurement system, and we're actually using that system to do the call-offs. So we load all the contracts on the system, and departments then call off from that system, because one of the conditions is that we need to ensure that there's that all of those service providers are actually getting contracts. So there is a rotation system in the e-procurement which departments are using at this point in time, which means that we're using the e-procurement and part of managing the system. So we can then see what call-offs the departments have made against those particular contracts. So that is just in terms of a member America's a question. Under, let me call it the red ends, because it's the contract holder is the Department of Human Settlements, no other department. Okay, as far as the transversal security contract is concerned, at this point in time, it's managed by the Provincial Treasury. So we're doing all the contractual arrangements around that, and the departments call off. So even if there are a legal issue, the Provincial Treasury actually embark on that process with the departments that have engaged with service providers. So we're always part of that. So in a way, we the contract holder for the province as far as the administration is concerned. So I'm going to go over to the questions from member van der Westhuizen. Member van der Westhuizen, it's we in continuous discussion with the National Treasury. And we've got a good relationship with the National Treasury because of our approach, and we've always requested that, before circulars are sent out, that they will send drafts, which they've done. Of course, depending on the circumstances, they might not have enough time to do that. So there are cases where they've sent the draft to us and we gave comments, and then there are cases that they've just issued the circular, depending on where they found themselves. But there is an understanding that there needs to be consultation with the departments and the national departments, and as far as possible, the National Treasury try to stick to that. Then, of course, the mere fact that we also know part of those groups, you're already influencing the way that instruction notes will be issued and what will be covered. The issue about is instructions law. Yes, as a province, we had a particular position a couple of years ago, but as it happens, there are developments. There were quite a number of court cases, and out of that court cases, it actually became clear that there's considerable power in that instruction notes from the National Treasury. So we added states that we accept that instructions are law. So we don't have that viewpoint anymore that that we've got the right either to implement or not implement. It's in terms of the current legal viewpoint, and some of the court cases it is law, but we still, whilst it's law, there is still the responsibility in terms of whether there are issues that we disagree, to take up with the with the National Treasury, and as I've said, some of the latest instruction notes in the Concord decision, I mean, our views were basically upheld. The issue of the letter to the instructions, I think that's probably from the AG side. It's probably about consistency across the country as at large. I think we also need to accept there are other areas where we actually differ in terms of how we've implemented. We're the only province that have got the e-procurement system. None of the other provinces have got the e-procurement system. They handle trick quotes. We do not handle trick quotes. It's open, because of the e-procurement system. And our belief is if we can show that we address the intention of it, there's no need to follow it to the letter of the law, because if we do it in the case what I just explained, we need to get rid of our e-procurement system, and that becomes the bulk of how we're operating in the Western Cape. So we do believe it's our responsibility to prove that we adhere to the intent of the instruction note and not just to the letter of the law, and that becomes important, and that's also a discussion that Zelinda is driving with the Auditor General. In terms of the latest Concord decisions, Mr. van der Westhuizen, of course, in that particular the decision, the court indicated that the preferential procurement regulations is unlawful, and that of course created a huge problem within the environment, because it was followed up by letters from the National Treasury that we've said that they said they need to stop procurement, and then a previous procurement must be finalized in terms of the older regulations. And of course, that could not, no service delivery department could stop procurement, because if you stop procurement, then you stop service delivery. And of course, from the Provincial Treasury side, we've engaged with National. They've reviewed their specific position. And also in terms of agreement with them, they have put draft new regulations out there, which I think it's still for comment. Hopefully it will be promulgated soon. But in the meantime, they've also asked, indicated that institutions can ask for exemptions. One of the problems with the exemptions, which we identified, if you ask for exemption, you can actually not do any empowerment. There's no empowerment issues. You must only award on price, and that was discussed on an executive level. The decision was taken in the province that we need to have a standard approach. That as a policy, we still keep the bulk of the 2017 regulations, and only those areas that was really found to be unlawful, we take that out, and hence we've indicated to all of the departments that we will still apply as a policy, because it was adopted, the crux of the 2017 regulations, excluding those areas that's been found to be unconstitutional. So at this particular point in time, there is a uniform approach in the province. Of course, when that letter was issued by the National Treasury, there was, I think, a month where there was quite a lot of serious concerns. And of course, some of the departments have not progressed because of, if they do that, whether they're going to be audit queries around it. So they were risk averse, and hence it influenced some of the projects that they had to complete. I hope I've answered all the questions.
If there are follow-up from members.
Thank you, Chair. Just a follow-up with regard to the engagement that you have with the AG's office with regard to the interpretation of some of these practice notes. My observation up till now is that the Treasury is very inflexible in terms of a particular interpretation that they ascribed to the practices that need to be implemented. What's your experience in terms of your engagement with the treasury, with the AG's office? I'm referring to in particular in terms of if there's a differing interpretation of a particular practice, that how amenable are they to open up the thinking in terms of this sort of different interpretation that will still ensure compliance with the intent of the practice note. And then lastly, Chair, is that in terms of the province's procurement regulations, I mean, and you mentioned is that 70, 20, 30. What exactly is our position with regard to the outcome of the ACA's judgment and hiatus that existed within certain departments for a month, where the National Treasury did not provide necessary guidance. For clarity purposes, that's just a reiteration in terms of what are we doing in the province in terms of procurement? Is it 30, 70, or well, I don't know if I expressed myself correctly, but I hope you follow the intent of it. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Member Mary, for the question. Maybe just to reflect on some of the discussions that we're having with the AG. So we do it at different levels. It's a technical discussion, and then there's more strategic discussions, which is currently led by the Premier himself around this, and that we actively engage in. And then there's there's also engagements with the business executive, like Isaac has indicated, between ourselves as well as the Department of the Premier. So on the technical, when there's these issues of interpretation, and I think we acknowledge the fact that the AG is the supreme auditing institution. They audit laws, instruction, and they're very clear in terms of what their mandate is. Having said that, I think it's important that because of the process that I think that Isaac engaged in, how when an instruction comes through, the test that we put the instruction to in terms of implementability, practicality, and rationality, and the engagements that we then have at a departmental, provincial level, and also at a municipal level. In terms of our role, we do take these issues back to the AG, and they listen. If there's still an disagreement, there's a process that is being followed, and I think our track record has shown that we have been, in terms of the arguments and the legal basis for those arguments that we've put forth. I think we have been fairly successful in engaging the AG around its initial interpretation around some of these issues, and also in terms of our engagements with the actual lawmaker. So it's not just an engagement with the AG. We also see the importance of continuous engagement with the lawmaker, where we see some of these things might be challenging when it comes to the implementation side of it. And then obviously there's other initiatives also that I think we are embarking on, especially within the municipal space, where we're trying just to make it easier and provincial space for departments and municipalities to become compliant, to get to your level 3. I don't want to get into the technicalities of it, but in order for institutions to become compliant. So I think what was also encouraging in the engagements with that the Premier has led is really the agreement for continuous engagement from the AG, and that is where our focus is currently. Thank you, Isaac.
Yeah, just to let's on to what Linda was saying. So after the latest conclusion of audits in municipalities, we could genuinely see that the AG have listened to some of the issues on interpretation, and we've also provided them with all the documents that we send to national as well. And as Yolanda said, I do believe that we've got the agreement in terms of when there are major issues. In fact, we've said to them, if they come up with any identification of risk, which they believe is transversal, they need to immediately engage with us. So I think there's progress. So under regulations positions, Mr. America, it was actually fairly simple for the Western Cape. Like, I think we've been previously in this house, or the Standing Committee on Finance have indicated the way how we've implemented the 2017 regulations, and there were discretionary powers, and as a province we've decided not to execute those discretionary powers because our states have shown our commitment and how to small businesses, to empowerment and so on. So we haven't implemented those areas, or some of those areas. It's actually been found unconstitutional by the law. So in fact, at this particular point in time, we've maintained the position. The only issue is on the local content, which we've implemented previously, which is now also in terms of the preferential procurement, unconstitutional. And then, of course, the whole issue of the 30% of subcontracting. But even without the preferential procurement, we've always applied subcontracting. So in the province, we've taken the position of least a position that doesn't ensure that you put a lot of additional mechanisms in place, the least disruption. So at this particular point in time, apart from those two issues, is exactly the same that we've done since 2017. And I think we were probably in a privileged position that we've made that decision, and also in the way that we've implemented. And then, of course, what we've also done is because of the opportunity for exemptions, we're still awaiting the final clarity from the court. The national have approached the court to indicate when the suspension or the unlawfulness comes into play, whether it's from 2nd of November last year, which the Supreme Court time have collapsed, or is it now February next year, starting from the latest ruling. So in the event that the court decides it's from 2nd of November last year, we've asked for that period for exemption to protect our departments.
Honorable Chego. Nonde.
Yes, thanks, Chair. No, what I didn't get is clarity from the department was on the issue of the interdepartmental claims that was explained. I wanted to check if it is indeed a norm for the interdepartmental claims to take place, and with a concern around the public works and the human settlement, if indeed there was no breach of any procedure as far as that is concerned, and then what would be the way forward so that we do not have reoccurrences of such kind of misunderstandings going forward. I just wanted clarity in that regard because I didn't get the actual clarity. Is it a norm that there would be interdepartmental claims, and if the AG and the National Treasury are just coming up with a fuss, an unnecessary fuss towards that department, or what is going on? Thanks very much.
Thank you. So it is practice. Let me rather say it's a practice. So for instance, if I give you maybe another example, we've got the Provincial Training Institute, which is part of the Department of the Premier, which if we want to, they arrange courses, all departments send officials to those courses, and then the Department of the Premier claims from those departments. So so the departmental claims is a practice within our environment. As I've also indicated, this is the first time that the AG have raised it, and I think that there is a need to have a discussion with the AG, because this is not the only case where we've got departmental claims. It means that if they've got a particular position, it will affect all the other departmental claims. And you can actually, by virtue of the financial systems, draw the information. And the AG, if that's their viewpoint, they will probably go there. So I do think it's incumbent then from the Provincial Treasury to engage the AG and the AG's viewpoint on that. Remember, we also have only seen it as part of your committee's resolutions. But it is an area that we need to take up, because if that's the viewpoint, it means there are risks for other departments where there are departmental claims as well. So it is a practice within our environment. And maybe we should also just understand from the AG why they see it as a non-compliant issue. And if so, put the necessary mechanisms in place.
Thank you very much. I think there's no further questions. One of your questions has not been answered.
Thank you, Chair. I think that's one of the issues, maybe as a standing committee, that sometimes we need to have a not. Oh, that's nice. It's really nice. Okay. Okay. But I think we need to have, as a scoper, to have the discussion with the AG in sometimes trying to understand the moving target that they do, because while sometimes you'll see something, it's a norm in the departments, then you'll find out that after a period of time, it's not a norm, it is a finding now. We need to understand the mechanisms they use or the decisions that they take as they flip-flop or as they change annually. What is that based on? And we know that they do sample checking, but it cannot be the sample checking misses the practice that has been happening throughout the years to be for a specific year that now it is a finding. Now, that is some of the things that we have to engage with the AG to be maybe empowered to have an understanding of why that is the reason. Maybe there is an issue, that underlying issue, that is the one that they foresee as a risk for them to say this is a finding one way or another. I don't know, but I think we have to have those discussions, because it ends up being as if there is a misunderstanding from the governments to the AGs, whereas if maybe we were empowered also to understand, or even those engagement that we've been asking AG, that are you engaging with the departments throughout the year for them to understand some of the issues that maybe that you foresee happening, the risks that you foresee happening, or you are not, and they said they're engaged. So if the system is like this now, you ask yourself that where is a loophole that is not covered, that we end up with something that is a finding, but in principle is what the oversight members is saying, that as long as the service has been delivered, why do we have to call that a finding? So it's one of the things maybe to the resolution that chair will have to engage to have that understanding and to be capacitated enough to have an understanding of when do we do the see and the so. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Honorable Masego, because as you say, if there are so many moving targets, it gives an impression of inconsistency. So that you've got one set of principle for the same thing, then you take another set of principle out as well. So I think I know within our program, there is a discussion with the AG where we'll be discussing on various issues. So we just have to note those, Mr. David, so that we can raise them with the AG. I think if there are no further questions or comments from you, honorable members, and if there are no additions or further additions from your side, let me make use of the opportunity to thank you very much for always being available for a very comprehensive, very short, but very loaded and comprehensive presentation that we've given. They were very helpful to me, and obviously I'm sure to members as well, because we clarify quite a number of issues. You know, sometimes we always want to, we would like to, I think we've taken that resolution as a committee that we rather will want to ask the department, either can they just send this in writing and we don't have to ask them to come. But sometimes it's better when you interact with the people so that you can ask them questions. Like today, it has been very, very helpful. Thank you very much for coming. We are now going to take a break, honorable members, and then go to the members' lounge, and then maybe can be there for 15 minutes, and then be back. We finalize the issues of the committee.
Thank you, Chair. You indicated that the department are excused exiting the meeting now.
No, whatever, yes. We are going to break. We finish with you. We can break.
They don't have to return.
Yeah. Snacks, and then after 15 minutes, we come back and continue with our resolutions and the minutes. So, thank you very much. You can join us in the members. Otherwise, Yeah. The attendance. Or the minutes. Yeah. Let's deal with the minutes first and then the resolutions. Okay. There are minutes. Is this of the 14th of August? These are the minutes. Are they not attached somewhere here? It's this one, but it must be that you must say the minutes. But you must say the March. Oh, just adopt it, but we'll have to change it. Okay. Okay. Say it's the minutes of the 14th of March. Yeah. 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 So it's a one pager, honorable members.
I propose that we adopt the minutes with a correction of the month of August to March. Okay.
I support that amendment.
Thank you very much, honorable members. Just also then, Mr. Davis, you must just take cognizance, although we talk about it informally, of item 4 on matters arising. Okay. Yeah. We just need to make a follow-up on that. At least maybe at our next meeting, we can have an idea of what we are going to do. Now, in terms of the resolution, honorable members, are there any issues out of the matters that were raised there that would like to raise? There was a very good and a comprehensive presentation on the IFMS, and as well as the issue of the instruction from National Treasury, and also the issue regarding the red end. Now, Honorable Masek.
I think the matter on our tracking document, it will be closed. We got more than enough info about the IFMS and the issue of the red ends. The only thing that already is on our program is the engagement with the AG, Auditor General. So already that is there. So with that means this matter there, we got the clarity. It's just the way forward of interaction with the AG to have an understanding on some of the findings as they do them down.
And in any case, the issue, as I said, on our program, we will be meeting the AG anyway. And then when we meet them, then if there are no further resolution, then honorable members, that honorable American. Okay, I see honorable Maseko.
Just if we are done with that, that's just issue I want to raise.
Yes, we finish with the resolution.
Okay, Chair, the issue of the APEC. I just want to I know you are on the executive committee.
There's a meeting this afternoon.
I think I appreciate the engagement with the APEC, but most of the time we sort of get shortchanged when they do their programming, not looking at what we have on the programs that we would love maybe to have a day you influence, to have a day that we know that is the allocated slot for the scoper, that we can be part of the meetings as they do meetings, because most of the times you'll find that they will have those visual sessions, but we won't be part of that because of the other clashing of the other programs. So we will appreciate maybe if you can look into that and try to synchronize and also have a buy-in within the executive that we also want to be part of the activities that are there, because we are part of that. With our ching, we might as well be acknowledged that that service, we have to get it. That's one. And two, there are some issues that are outstanding that I will appreciate. I tried to look on my laptop of the issues that the APEC executive committed that it will be the engagements of with the in trying to get the best practices, but I didn't see that. Maybe if we can now ongoingly from the executive, if we can get the reports of when you had the meetings, what was discussed and what is the way forward, because of it's not nice to pay for something that you don't even know what is happening. We just wait for that message one day we are going to have the visual and that's it. But we do want to we also have to have the value for the money. We also want to have in our report as SCOPA to also have the APEC report in that can come to the House of some of the things that we are doing. So I'll appreciate if we can really try to look into that so that we do things different, but we do them to add value in our committee. Thank you, Chair.
I think that's a very good point, Honorable Maseko, you raised, so that you can be up to date about what's happening. Because I must say, most of the time they send all the information to me or to Dustin. Sometimes you think it's for general information. I think what we'll do from now, Mr. David, any correspondence we receive, we share with the members. And secondly, I think we must have a standing item on APEC. Okay, standing item APEC. There might be reports, there might be no report, but it must just be because I know presently they are preparation to do a national conference. There is going to be a council of delegates, but that council of delegates, I think, is going to be virtual. But then the actual annual AGM or so on, I think, is going to be physical. Then there's also going to be a discussion for a SADCOPEC conference as well, which they say, I think there's already a standing resolution that it must be in South Africa. But then obviously South Africa must decide whether it's going to Cape Town, it's going to be KZN or Joburg. But there were already discussion that, look, most of these things we always either take them to Cape Town or Joburg or KZN, and we forget that there are other provinces as well that are actually of geographic attraction and of geographic beauty as well. So I think we are going to start sharing that information. No. Thank you very much for raising that, Honorable Maseko.
We had a Congress, we went to Joburg, and there were some issues that it was the resolutions. But how far are we with those resolutions for the implementation? We haven't seen anything. And I think we are at the stage, if we have to see a different accounts committee in different provinces doing the right things, we have to start somewhere. And the responsibilities with the APEC to make sure that it sort of filters down there to make sure we do the right thing. So if maybe the best practice it will be in Western Cape, so be it. Let's start here, and then maybe it will filter to other provinces that we say, can you please send us your APEC report of what is it that you have? This is what we use. I mean, it's something that will represent us to say, this is how we do it in Western Cape. And maybe it will add value within the country, one way or another.
As I said, EXCO, and then there are also discussion of conference documents there. We must suggest topics for conference discussions, and then I will forward all of that information to you, Mr. Davis. Then you can send it to all the members. Other than that, thank you very much, honorable members. The meeting is adjourned.
In the meeting before, you make sure that on record, we do have to go to Peter Maritzburg. We do have
no, that's recorded already. That's the recorded.
Thank you, Chair, and have a great day.
And thank you, members.
Sometimes about the members online. Thank you very much, Honorable Station as well as Honorable Taiko. Thank you very much.
The meeting is adjourned. Member Andrikas.
Thank you to the new chair.